Hey, everybody. Welcome to a sad episode of Extra Time, the U.S. Men's National Team Soccer Podcast. United States making its exit here in the FIFA World Cup 2022 in Qatar with a 3-1 loss to the Netherlands. Chris and I are going to break this game down, just kind of talk about how we felt about it. You know, everything, emotions, the excitement, the disappointment, the hopes, the dreams, the future. Yeah. We're gonna sort of dive into it on this episode of Extra Time. Okay, so gosh. Just, I mean, the emotions, right? I guess it's good and bad, right? Like being so attached to this team. I will say this. So there's going to be a lot of negatives and a lot of positives, but I do want to start with I have watched this team lose a lot of games, right? In the history that I've watched them. This is the first time that I watched us lose a game, especially with the score 3-1, right? But watched us lose a game where I didn't feel like I watched just us get pummeled for 90 straight minutes, right? Like we've had games where we lose 2-3 to nothing, and we don't even, it's like the Spain-Costa Rica game where like we didn't do anything, and we're like trying to make mountains out of molehills, right? People are just like, man, the United States look real bad, and we're like, oh yeah, but if Dempsey had just hit that 45-yard bender, we would have, like
we would have had one. Yeah.
Right,
No, I do get what you mean. Yeah. I mean, it was a real game. It felt like we had a lot of agency and initiative in the game. And that, I mean, the reality is Dutch had like 5 or 6 shots, scored 3 of them. Oh,
right. And when you get to this level and you get to the World Cup, one of the things that was very apparent from the Dutch squad that, not only wasn't apparent for our men during this game, but really has sort of been the struggle that we've seen since the beginning of qualifying is you really don't get that many chances. And when you get a chance, you have to put it away. And if you looked at this game through that lens, Christian Pulisic in the second minute, just put your laces through it, right? You got to be a goal scorer. You got to have that mentality. And I know there were people saying maybe he thought he was right. Maybe he thought he was offsides.
He said he thought he was offsides,
right,
but he still hit it.
Correct.
So, like, if you're going to still hit it, then put it in the net.
You better hit it. And it's something to me that is unfortunate because it shows an inexperience for him that I would really be expecting him not to have, right? You're this far deep in the tournament. You know that your coaching staff has told you many times this is how FIFA's working. You found out before the tournament started, FIFA is going to have video automated VAR or offsides. They are not going to be blowing the whistle.
You play through every play.
And the referees were instructed they're going to let the play finish because it's easier to go back and say it doesn't count than it is to award something that never happened. And so when that ball pokes through, he tries to do this cute, like, I don't know if he was trying to knock it in the corner, if he was trying to go through the goalie's legs, if he was just like, I'm just going to hit it and see what happens. But you see strikers from every other team.
He was trying to put it just to his side, but like you said, hit it on goal.
Right, just bury it. I mean, you're literally like, that angle, you got to have a whole lot of the net, a lot more than we thought we did. And just put your laces through it and bury it. Because then it's in the back of the net, it's 1-0. I'm not saying you win off that goal, right? I'm not saying you win off that goal,
just
but
a quick sidebar comparison. Like, you see Vinicius Jr.'s goal in the Brazil game today?
Yeah.
Had the goalie and 4 defenders all coming in to try to stop that, and he put it exactly where none of them could get it.
When it was so cheeky, because you watched him.
That's playing,
Right. You
Yeah,
watched the ball land
he
at his
settled
feet.
it,
He looked
watched
up,
them step.
and then he kind of like, you could almost feel like he got this smirk on his face that was like, come on, one more step. And they leaned, and he was like, oop, and he knocked it over the top of him, and like, you look at Haji Wright, right? It's a 2-1 game. Great. We got this fluky goal that never should have happened, right? But it's in. Weird goals happen, and that's the benefit to getting these one-game contests. We got a really fluky goal. We're back in it, right? All of a sudden, here we are. The Netherlands has just pressed. We've stripped the ball over. Our midfield's turned it over exactly where we want it. The ball comes through, and here we are. We finally hit a break pass, and Wright is in. This is where the money is. This is why you're on the roster. This is where you earn your spot. This is where you solidify your name in history. And he takes the fattest, heaviest, defender-like touch to try to go around this goalie. And as soon as that ball hit his foot, I wasn't even hopeful. I was like, I don't even care if he sends this thing on net because it's not going. The defender had already covered it. And it was just like...
When I saw it go through, I jumped up excited, and as soon as he took that first touch, I just turned around and said, oh, what are you doing?
Right. And those things can't happen. Right now, if we look at the Netherlands' chances, right, with the exception of the third goal, because we'll get to it, those first two, those are run-of-the-mill plays. Get the ball to the end line, knock the ball back across the box. Hopefully there's a runner coming in and they just hit it on frame, right? And if you look at those goals...
build-up play that we've done hundreds of times, even at our high school level. We did that in practice hundreds of times.
Right. And, you sling the ball to where you think your guys are going to be, and you hope there's somebody making a run. And both of those goals had more players in front of them than both of our chances. And
absolutely,
one of the things that you recognized, and this is the way that I worded it to my dad. To the Netherlands, chances were goals. They attack the ball with this recognition that you don't get a chance like this very often, and so when you get it, you don't hesitate, you bury it, and you put it away. The United States looked at chances as if they were this thing you might never get. And they were just grateful. It was the victory was already there. Just the fact that we had the chance, right? So the ball comes to them and they're like, oh, we got a goal scoring chance. And they're excited about it. And it's yeah, but you didn't finish it. So it doesn't matter. Right?
This is where everybody talked about it going into the tournament. Young, how is that going to manifest itself? I think that's what we saw. It manifested itself in two ways in this game. First, like you said, is the chances. We're ecstatic that they even got chances, and so they weren't clinical or ruthless with those chances. It was the focus was on creating chances, not on scoring goals. That's a young, youthful mindset and not an experienced.
Correct. They had that attitude that when the chance got to them, they were oh, I didn't think it was going to be me. I didn't think I was going to be the one with the chance. And now I don't know what to do.
And then the other way that the youth manifested itself was, this is in the youth of the players, and also I think inexperience at the coaching level. Greg does not have odd experience, and in that was that they played right into the Netherlands' tactical, played right into their hands. What the Netherlands wanted to do tactically, and we didn't adapt to it at all throughout the game.
Right.
Just kept doing what we wanted to do, and the Netherlands said, sure, keep doing it because we got it figured out.
Mm-hmm. And, anybody would have watched tape on us, right? We said this in CONCACAF. I mean, I feel like everybody had said it in CONCACAF, right? Their big warning to Greg was, you better hope that nobody finds out you guys can't beat a low block, right? And the benefit to us through the group stages were we didn't concede. So we never had to beat a low block because the other team had to stretch and press the field. Now you give up a goal in the first 17 minutes of the game. Now the Netherlands goes, We have they are experienced. They have a dedicated coach. They are a disciplined team. That ball went in the back of the net, and the gears changed. And they were like,
And the
we're just,
reality
yep,
is too, you know, all of those teams that we faced in CONCACAF that we couldn't break down that low block, defenders are like 5 levels below the defenders of the Netherlands. I mean, Virgil van Dijk is arguably the best center back in the world.
correct.
And Ake is probably in the top 10. I mean, I know he doesn't start all the time for Man City, but he starts a lot for them. He is one of their main center backs.
Well, I mean,
So
think about it. Ake's playing week in and week out against Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, and Erling Haaland in practice. Even if he doesn't start,
exactly.
he guy's probably pretty
Yeah,
good.
exactly. So the it's where, and you know, a lot of the media that I've seen about it has talked about naivety of thinking that we can just keep doing the same thing and that like eventually we're going to get there, we're going to break through. Like, oh, these are some of the absolute best defenders in the world. Gotta do something.
Right. You can't just like write it down on paper and say we're just going to do this, and then somebody goes, well, what happens when it doesn't look like that? It was like, well, we'll get to it when that happens. And then this was the example of it happened.
They weren't prepared for it.
And we didn't know. Now, given that, I believe we certainly weren't prepared for it. We didn't look horrible in possession, even deep in the game.
We looked solid in possession.
Right?
Yeah.
And we looked solid, and I want to – here's what I mean by that. Obviously, we were supposed to have possession, right? And so our ability to break through the middle lines of their defense and into the back line didn't look great. But given that we knew that they weren't going to change and we knew that we weren't going to change, it didn't look like a disaster. Like, we still did a pretty okay job of getting the ball through there. The problem became the Netherlands tactics really highlighted our disastrous final third efforts, right? We don't have creativity. We don't have inventiveness. And you sort of,
and we don't have precision there.
Right.
And that's where Joe should be in there from the start of the game, because he is more precise. Like, Robinson is fantastic at getting down there and getting crosses. Then where are they going? You know?
Right. Right.
Weah is probably the most precise of the starters that we had as far as his crosses. They just weren't quite finding the right places.
Well, I mean, and you think about
also Pereira not making any of the correct runs.
Right. So let's dive into that. Let's dive into this lineup first, because we
should start at the beginning, huh?
But right. Well, we should, but I just like that this is going to go wherever it's going to go. So when the initial roster came out, we were all like thrilled, right? We were baffled because we saw Sargent on this thing, and then all of a sudden, Sargent started, right, in those first couple, and we just were like, whoa, like Greg is truly abandoning this old mentality, right? And now here we are against the Netherlands. You knew the defense that you were walking into, right? Virgil van Dijk is not only just fantastic, he's just fantastic everywhere, right? He's going to shut off passing lanes. He's going to communicate his defense. He's got solid wing backs. He's going to win just about every ball in the air. So who do we go with, and what's our strategy? So we see Jesus Ferreira. Now, my first thought was, well, Josh Sargent's hurt, so he's playing the player that's the most similar to Josh Sargent, right? We're not going to play a Haji right.
I think it's true. Yeah.
Right. We don't want to play the Haji right because we don't want to be slinging balls into the box. Okay? So we are going to make those two assumptions. But then you watch the way that we played, and we're just getting the ball to the end line and thinking about slinging the ball into the box. And you're like, well, then that's not going to work because Jesus Ferreira is not making any of the runs. And Greg had even said beforehand, and I found this out after the game, that he wanted Ferreira to play as a false 9 and keep dropping into the midfield, which begged the question:
He
you have Giovanni
did
Reyna
when
and you have Brendan Aronson. Why are you not just playing a midfielder in that spot and just playing
absolutely that was the big question. If your strategy is okay, we're not going to challenge Van Dyke directly because he's too good, and I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay with admitting that to yourself and saying we don't have a player who's going to beat Van Dyke.
right? That's where
So
tactics come
let's
in.
play around him. Let's play it a different way and play around him. And I'm glad you came to that conclusion. Like you said, why is Ferreira the guy you picked then? Two players on your bench who are much better ball handlers, much better movers of the ball, have better vision, have a lot more experience playing against high level defense.
Correct. And breaking them down. And it not that I think this is what it was, but it almost kind of has this like hint of arrogance. Whereas other squads have changed up their tactics and their lineups against specific teams, when you know you're not the aggressor, right? And I mean, you and I play tons of games where like this sort of concept comes in, but I do also believe it comes into play in this type of a game, in this soccer match, where the United States needed to make a decision. Are you the aggressor or are you not the aggressor, right? If you're a Brazil, it's the other team's responsibility to deal with you, right? If you're a France, it's the other team's
It's pushing to
responsibility.
score goals.
Right. The United States, I thought we were about even with the Netherlands, so I thought it was interesting that Greg basically took this stance of, no, we're going to make the Netherlands deal with us, and the Netherlands was like, yeah, that's what we were hoping for. We were hoping to just do that because what did we see?
And
We watched Gakpo
said that
and
after the game that like that was his strategy. Like I know they're going to want to possess the ball, so I'm going to let them.
right,
And when they give us space, we're going to be practiced and clinical about how we move through that space.
correct.
Sure.
And he knows, okay, so you want Robinson is going to try to step up and possess the ball, and Dest is going to try to come up this side. Okay, so Depay Memphis and Gakpo. I know it's Memphis Depay, but he said Memphis. So Memphis and Gakpo are going to just sit out wide. And Zimmerman and Ream can have the ball all day because you're going to have to play the ball into the central midfield, which not only is what they were expecting, it's something awkwardly we don't want to do, which blows my mind for how good our midfield is. We don't like playing that direct ball into the midfield and having them turn and swing it wide. We love having the midfield get the ball, check back to Adams, have the ball go outside to a winger, and then try to create something. And so all that did was just leave Virgil and his center back partner to just stare at the field and watch the ball go like this and constantly pick out the guys who were coming through. And all of a sudden, you saw so many times on our attack, we were attacking like 7 guys into 9 guys. And you can't do that if you're not going to be inventive, if you're not going to be creative, if you're not going to, it's just not going to happen.
It's not.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's what I was frustrated. I was just frustrated with looking at the lineup because why not play a 4-4-2? Why not leave Weah and Pulisic up front to be your 2 strikers and see if they could create something and then try to just shift your midfield and create overloads on various sides? Right? And I know they were trying to do that with the 4-4-3 or 4-3-3. I know we were trying to, right? But it wasn't happening.
And that is absolutely, and it is something that we talked about all through qualifying, is that Greg has an idea and he's going to stick with his idea. And in a lot of questions in the media of, should Greg be our coach for the next World Cup? And my answer is emphatically no. I'm grateful for what he did in finding and nurturing and shepherding the talent generation. I'm grateful for what he did in bringing them together and creating a team out of them. He did a really good job of that. Okay, his skill is man management and team dynamics. Those are his skills, and he did a great job of even a guy like Tim Ream, who wasn't in the team for almost 2 years, to be able to call on him and say, hey, look, man, we need you to be a part of this team now.
Right, I got this
And
job for you. I
obviously,
need you to do it.
Ream is older, so he's not necessarily going to be immature about it. But for the attitude of all the players to be, when my name is called, I'm going to step up and I'm going to be a part of this team and I'm going to do my best to help this team succeed. It created that mentality and nurtured that
Mm-hmm.
attitude within this team. And that's fantastic and wonderful. He is not a tactical mastermind of any stretch. He really, we have seen he's not even above average tactician. He's slightly below average,
Right.
probably. Now that we have all of this young talent established as our team, we need somebody who's going to be able to take them and get them to that next level and get them to the point of, being feared, a feared team of like, oh, when these guys are on the pitch together, they create things
Right.
and they are dangerous. And
Right.
Greg is Greg is not going to do that. We need
No.
somebody else.
Well, and I think we've seen that. We've seen that over and over. That Greg seems to have this vision, like you said, to make the United States a more progressive style of soccer, and we've seen that. The men are playing a more progressive style of soccer, but now we've hit a wall, and it's beginning to look like the talent level on the field is greater than Greg's sort of like talent cap, right? He doesn't know what to
That's
do
It's not
with such
beginning
a
to look
talent.
like that. That is what it looks
Right.
like.
He doesn't know what to do. Right? Like if I had to coach, this is an extreme example, right? But if you were like, Tim, I want you to coach the Brazilian men's national team, I would look at you and I would say, well, every single guy in the field knows more than me. So what could I possibly do for them outside of maybe like I'm the third party, like, hey, did you guys know you move the ball like that? I don't know, maybe think about it. Right? That's kind of like that's where Greg is at this moment. Is does he have more talent, than every player? Maybe no, but the vast majority of the way the team functions is starting to get above his threshold, and he doesn't know what to do with it. And we've seen it tactically, right? So if you're sitting at home and you're like, I don't know, man, this seems kind of bold. Like he knows these players in and out, like he coaches with them. I'm not saying he doesn't, and his team is probably great. There's a lot of coaches working with them, but you're expecting to see a result tactically, and you're expecting to see a team who knows when they're down 2-1 to the Netherlands, something changes. And nothing changed. Nothing changed until after the Netherlands bagged their third goal. And then what's your change? Your change was you
Just
put in
throw
Jordan
everything
Morris?
forward. Yeah.
The kitchen sink was Jordan Morris? Like, I don't even
I mean,
understand right now. And, and
reality to that is I don't know else or what else he could have done because Argent's hurt. And like, so who's our other attacker that you throw up there?
right, and everything else was spent. Everything else was just absolutely
Though
spent.
probably at that point I would say Luca de la Torre because he is going to be more creative than Jordan Morris is.
Right.
Like at least try.
At least just try, right? Well, and that's what hurts. So going back to the tactics thing, right? If you're sitting at home and you're wondering like, what the heck are these guys talking about? I was expecting to see after the United States went down 1-0 that the players on the field were going to have an understanding of what the Netherlands was about to do, and they were going to at least have an idea of how to break it down. Okay? And I'm not saying that idea had to work. I'll give like a really simple example, right? So a really simple example is typically when teams play like a mid-block and they have a really high defensive line because they think they have the same kind of pace as your strikers. The way that you break that down is you start hitting balls up over the top. It forces their back line backwards, and it gives you more space for your midfielders. Okay? That's an example of things of how to do. We knew that the Netherlands was going to shift into a low block after they scored. What we didn't see was the men try anything different. It's not like we were trying to bring the ball up through the flanks and then knock it through the middle and then, send one of our wingers in and Weah was going to overlap the right-hand side and then all of a sudden the Netherlands scored and there was this switch of like, okay, we know that this is what they're going to do, so now we're going to play into our false nine. Our false nine is going to lay the ball off to our midfielders who are either going to release a winger through in a flat ball or they're going to rip the ball on goal or something. We didn't see anything different. We just saw them force the same thing, which begs the question, did the guys actually have any other idea, right? Why isn't there any more creativity? Are they not being more
And
creative
they
because
didn't. And I think that's where, again, it goes back to the two big weaknesses that we've talked about forever and ever is they're young, don't know how to adapt necessarily, and Greg is not a great tactical coach, so he didn't prepare them for lots of different abilities. He didn't prepare them for different scenarios, and so they weren't ready to adapt. They weren't ready to try something different. They said, this was our strategy that we were thought it was going to work to begin, and so we're going to keep going at it because we think it's going to work now
right,
too.
right? I want to prove to the world that like my coaching style works. You reflect back on some of the CONCACAF stuff. I mean, he's been getting a lot of attitude since then, and he got attitude in the friendlies, and he was pretty adamant to not always take that himself. He passed blame on some of the players every once in a while, which is a pretty bad look as a coach. But I mean, you just got outclassed, right? I mean, what is it, Louis
Absolutely.
Van Gaal or however they were pronouncing it, right? I mean, he like you
However you
said,
pronounce that G, yes.
yeah. However, every single person, whoever who looked at that game, do I think a 3-1 scoreline is reflective of the result of that game? No, I don't. I think a 1-0 Netherlands scoreline is more reflective, or maybe even a
The
2-1.
2-1.
The 2-1 was pretty
Yeah.
reflective. I think the third one hurts. But again, like, I can give us the third one because you are stretching, right? You are in transition and the Netherlands is coming for something. But when you watch that goal, I mean, I haven't screamed at my TV in a long time, right? And like, I'm gonna say, I'll say
Hey,
this.
let's real quick. Let's break down each of the Netherlands goals and just talk about what we did wrong, and what they did right. Why don't we do that? Let's go through each one and just see like.
All right, you want to take the first one? Well, you know what? The first and the second one are the same goal. So outside of it
Oh,
being a
true.
throw in, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Well,
tough. It's tough. That first one, because if Zimmerman isn't turning his body all the way and he just keeps his foot up, that first goal might hit his foot and not go in.
uh, well, that's where it is a game of, any it is a game of nuance in that there are probably 15 different things that could have been done differently in that play specifically for it not to end in a goal.
Mm-hmm.
Us losing the ball that high up the pitch, or in that area when we had pushed most of our team so high up the pitch, that they were able to turn it that quickly. The precision of the Netherlands movement, that like they won the ball. I don't remember which midfielder it initially got released to, but then his first ball out, up to Gakpo, like they knew that was their outlet. They knew ahead of time, if we win the ball in the midfield, outlet is going to be the far side of the field.
Right.
They won it on their left, and so they knew release it to Gakpo on the right. If they had won it on their right, I'm sure they would have been ready to say, let's release it to Memphis on the left.
Right, and because Memphis and Dumfries had been overloading that side, and that's what happens when you know that when the Netherlands knows our three midfielders are playing so tight. Because when you release the ball out to the outside and your wingback is coming up the field, now Robinson and Dest have to make a choice. Who's taking who? And now we have to see Tyler Adams coming over. And up until this point, I mean, even in this game, Tyler Adams is a workhorse. He's doing a ton of things. But we see in this, right, they get to the line, they draw to the byline, and they must have seen the film because they know, what does Zimmerman and Ream do? We drop really deep inside the 6. All they're doing is we're going to lay this ball back across the box, and we're going to hope that as our striker runs across the face of goal, someone's going to lose him. And that's what happened. You saw 3 or 4 guys just kind of go,
I have a problem with everybody just blaming Tyler Adams for the first goal. Yes, if you watch the tape, like it looks like he's just following Memphis without actually trying. Then if you look closer, you see that Yunus Musa and Serginho Dest are both marking the same player. They both went with, I think it's Blint. Remember who it was, but they
it's
both
Blint,
went
because
with
Blint's
the
their
man.
left back coming up.
they pretty sure that Adams is assuming that Moose is going to step to Memphis and Adams is going to, be at the top of the box or the top of the D to get anything that pops out.
Right. He's
I'm
that
pretty sure
outlet
that's
guy.
his thought process. And I do blame him in that he didn't communicate that with anybody.
Right.
Not that I saw. It didn't look like he said, "Hey, Eunice, step up." I didn't see that, but I'm pretty sure that's what he saw happening. He said, because he's following the play, he's seeing everybody, and he's saying, "Okay, Serginho has Memphis is running in. Obviously, Zimmerman and Ream have the center of the box, so Musa's going to see that, and he's going to step to
Mm-hmm.
Memphis." Didn't say anything. He's wide open.
Right. Absolutely wide open. And that's where, like, when you look at tactics, you can't just be that person that's just like, I look at the closest defender to him and I say, why aren't you marking this guy? Because the team is playing defense, right? And the easiest way to look at that is, well, every team has 4 defenders, the other team only has 2 strikers. So do you really think that every play there's 2 guys just hanging out in la-la land? Now, sometimes that's a good thing, right? There were a couple times where Zimmerman and Ream were free to kind of like make those moves and pick up some of these balls. But in a situation like this, tracking back with your guys not that hard, right? Memphis isn't making a run that's just like this bewildering.
No, it's
Whoa, like
not.
he's making a very standard run.
Literally ran straight from center, the midfield to the penalty spot. That's all he did.
Right. And it's something that we're not good at offensively is all of our guys either never make a run in the first place or beat the ball to their run and get stuck standing still. And Memphis waited until he was like, all right, he's about to hit the byline, and then he took off and he got that one step. That's the mentality that the Netherlands understood that we didn't understand. Goals are not scored by acres of space. They're scored by one step. You need the ball's distance around the outside of your defender, and it's going in. That's the distance you need to shoot. I remember when it finally clicked in my brain when I was like 19, 20 years old, that's the distance you need. All of a sudden, I was taking that little touch and ripping it and just getting a little bit of curve on that ball. And all of a sudden, you start scoring 30, 40% more goals than you scored before because everybody else is hoping.
Shooting.
Right. Everybody else is thinking, I need nobody to be in front of me. Netherlands was like, I just need a balls width of room. And they were willing to take those chances, right? You see it on the second goal, right? It's a throw-in, okay? It's a throw-in at the end of the half. You cannot fall asleep at the end of the half on a throw-in. And that's exactly really, what happens.
Like, I think 3 of our players were just really paying attention.
Right. And as soon as the ball gets thrown in and they start doing their really quick dinky passes, all they're waiting for is who's going to forget their mark. And as soon as somebody forgets their mark, boom, the ball goes down the end line. He cuts it back through the legs. Blint runs across the box, hits it in. And I'm screaming at my television. That's the exact same play.
I said the same thing.
Like and you're looking what? He's like a foot further backwards, maybe. It's the same play. It's the same goal. And what was frustrating to me also was this was the first game that after the goal got scored and you watch the replay, it finally looked like the United States players were upset with each other. We hadn't really been that disappointed, right? Like
Ream screamed at Dest.
Right. And Ream was upset. And then all of a sudden I was worried for us for the second half because we were already playing with this mentality that nobody wanted to be that guy that made a mistake. We were playing nervous, right? We were playing very nervous. And now all of a sudden we've conceded 2 goals and we're starting to get under each other's skin. And the Netherlands is just getting more and more relaxed because they're like, they're playing right into our hands. We're doing this thing. And now, and then you look at the third goal that the Netherlands scores. Right? Like you have to know he's there.
Somebody has to look.
You can't have 3 guys in the top of your 6 all marking nobody. That was, when I saw Ream's reaction, like Ream was literally just like looked at Robinson and just looked away. Like, buddy, like, are you kidding me right now? Like, what are you doing right here?
It's absolutely Robinson's fault but you can understand what he was trying to do. Was he saw this man and he saw like Reem was laying off a little bit to try to win the cross that was going to come in, and so he wanted to step and put pressure on that guy. Obviously, he should have looked over his shoulder first. At the same time, where is the communication? When I was a player, and even now when I play, and I know when I play in some of the adult leagues, when who are 10, 15 years older than I am, they get mad at me for it. I don't ever shut up when I'm on the field. I'm always telling somebody, if we're on defense, I'm always telling about who's open, who's making a run. I am always saying that, and then going forward, I'm always letting the person with the ball know like where their options are, telling somebody like make a run there. And as a coach, I tried to do the same thing. It looks very different as a coach because you can't see the field the way the players do. And if your players are constantly listening for your direction, it throws everything off. My point is, somebody somewhere in this team has not stressed communication because nobody nobody said anything. Nobody even
Right.
hinted at,
Right. And we beat
hey,
ourselves up and we looked
that's
defeated.
your runners.
Yeah. And it made us not want to communicate more. We were in a position where we were kind of like we were hoping
Anybody had
that we
said,
were just going to beat the
anybody
Netherlands.
on that field had said, runner on the back post, do you not think Robinson would have looked over his shoulder and then dropped out on him?
Right. And it's a good
Pretty sure
goal.
he
Like,
would
don't get
have.
me wrong. Like, I understand he's unmarked. You still don't have a great angle to hit that in, and you
His
still have to
finishing
hit it.
was still excellent.
It's fantastic. And so you think about the Netherlands has three, I'm going to say mediocre scoring opportunities, right? The first two were like, they probably should go in, right? As long as you just hit it on frame, you're close enough, it should go in. So those are good. And then the last one's like, it's kind of a mediocre scoring opportunity. And
it's a really good cross, too.
It's just right. It's
the
a great
cross
cross.
is right to him.
So it's just a clinical
great
finish, right?
Yeah.
Like let's just stay focused. Let's just put our foot through the ball and hit it exactly where we want. And it just was clean. And so here's the Netherlands with 3 goals, and here's the United States with tons of opportunities. I mean, even Tim Ream gets one. Now, granted, it's Ream, and he's kind of spinning backwards, and he tries to use his wrong foot, which I think is stupid. But, like, either way, like, at least it's our center back. Like, we had way more opportunities, right? When Tim Weah cranked up and hit his, why is nobody followed it up?
That was a beautiful
shot. It was a beautiful shot, but it just begged that question of, like, did anybody on the field believe we could win, or were we just playing the hope plan? I just hope when I hit this, it goes in so that we can win this game. Or I just hope that somebody else figures this out. Or I hope we beat the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Like, no, like you have to earn it.
I can agree with that.
And the Netherlands earned it. And, going back to Greg and what we were talking about, this is just Greg's inexperience. And we talked about, like, Greg being in the World Cup. Like, yeah, I remember when Greg was on the team in the World Cup, right? And I remember that because, I kind of don't remember that, right? Like, we had a whole series of players where, like, I didn't know who you were. Like, you didn't make any kind of lasting impression. And so, like, again, I think it's great. I think Greg has built an amazing group of players. I am very thankful for Greg that he actually stuck with his mission that, like, I'm going to bring in these talented players from Europe. I'm going to make America start to respect U.S. soccer. And at the end of the day, Germany didn't get out of their group. Right? That's a pretty big name team. We were the only CONCACAF team to make it out of the group stage. And we were the only CONCACAF team that looked good in the group stage. Right? Canada looked okay
and
until
had
you
moments
realized
of looking good.
They did, but then you realized Belgium was terrible, and all of a sudden it made you go like, well, like maybe Canada was just an okay kind of squad. And what we saw from Canada really was just hoping Alphonso Davies was going to carry them because Tajon Buchanan looked bad. And, like,
Great, yeah.
And so it's just like
Laren and Jonathan David, like, they all looked pretty good, but they definitely didn't look. I mean, if you compare their performances with especially our midfield of Adams, Musa, and McKennie, like, we looked much stronger than did any of the other CONCACAF teams.
Mm-hmm. And I think that only stems from the somewhat experience that somebody might have carried, that we've been here before, right? And, like, because Canada, you could really see it. Canada's, like, their first time.
They hadn't been there before.
They hadn't. And so, like, I really fully believe, like, obviously they're qualifying anyway, but even if they weren't, I fully believe Canada would be qualifying again. I think their program is headed in the right direction. I'm excited for them because they put in the work that they put in. And I believe that they
They
would
look
be a
good for the
team.
future.
Yeah, they would be a team that could compete to make it out of their group the next time. Um, but it's hard, going back to us, it's hard to watch a game where, like, I think what hurt me the most was this was supposed to sort of be our year, right? And I'm not saying it was our year to win it, but like,
Oh, and
we're so talented, and you didn't make it any further than you normally make it. Now, granted, it's the World Cup and it's the Sweet 16,
think
right?
though, I think though we us as well as a lot of the media, I think we adjusted our expectations appropriately. In that you go back to like this time last year or maybe a year and a half ago, expectation was, oh, this group will make it to the World Cup because they're talented enough. And then we're hopeful that they get out of the group stage, but they're young, so we're not really sure how they're going to handle the World Cup. Then last year happened where, we won the Nations League and the Gold Cup and like we had all these good performances. So like we readjusted our expectations and said, "Oh no, this team actually is, they're going to do well. They definitely should get out of the group stage and, we're going to make some inroads into this tournament." And kind of forgot about that previous idea of, well, but they are still pretty young and we actually 2026 is going to be more of like our tournament when they're going to
Right.
really challenge. And I
That's
think
fair. That's a fair assessment.
we lost sight of that a little bit, in that. And that's not to say I don't believe we could have done better this year. We definitely did still have the talent to do better. We should have beat Wales and we have beat England. And like that, we're coming out and facing Senegal and smashing them just the way England did, I think. But
Agreed. Yeah, not getting a goal against England in the group stages really makes it tough.
I think going forward, it shouldn't really change our view of what this team was, in that they're a highly talented group of young players gonna be better next time.
Right. Oh, I completely agree. I mean, you're not going to lose too many of these guys, and at the end of the day, you made the top 16, and you look at the FIFA World Rankings, and it's hard, but we were ranked 16 going into this, right? And you finished within the top 16. There were teams that were ranked higher than you that didn't make it out, and when you look at the bracket as a whole, there were teams that got a significantly easier road than we were going to, right? Because you look to the left and to the right of us in the brackets, you got Argentina, the Netherlands, France, like you were going to have to step up pretty early on. And so from that stance, I think you're dead on the money that we were sort of doing ourselves a disservice to believe, well, if we just get to play Senegal, then we'll make the quarterfinals, then people will really respect us. And it's like, yeah, but then at the end of the day, you're not
At some
really
point,
any
we gotta beat the high
right.
level teams.
Exactly. So like if the Netherlands is, which I believe they'll lose the next round. The Netherlands is a top 8 team. That's where their ranking was. They get knocked out in the top 8. Maybe we're better than them. Maybe we're not. Maybe we play. I think if we play the Netherlands 10 games, it would be like a 6-4 split, right? We'd probably win maybe
Probably,
2. The Netherlands would win 3, and then the other 5 would be draws, right?
draw.
And so, like,
Yeah.
I'm okay sort of with this result. I think it stinks the way that we got it. I think it stinks with the hype that we had put on them and the talent that we had, and we just sort of had this belief that, like, we could get there. And so I'm happy about that because this is the first time that I felt we played in a game, and I was disappointed that we lost because we actually could have won, right? When we played Belgium, when Wondolowski wanked that ball over the bar, like, we couldn't have won that game, right? Like, and it's fun to sit here and be like, oh, if we had just scored,
Should not
like,
have
we
had
could have.
any business.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was like the wonder years of Belgium. So like, it was exciting to be like, oh, if we had just. But I'll go back to the comment that I made at the beginning of this. We're just not, right? Like, good teams will show you that they're good, right? Look at Kylian Mbappe's goal. He brings the ball down. He's got 2 defenders in front of him. The goalie's in a perfect position, literally just staring at him. And Mbappe's like, yeah, okay. Like, no run up, no nothing. Just takes 1 step and bangs that sucker in there. And it's like, that's the difference. Poland's a great team. Mbappe's just better. And, that's one of the things that I think it's unfortunate for us right now because we have the talent, but we're not at the level where any of our players are the superpower overseas. They're not the stud for their team, So, yeah, I could agree with what you're saying. It still stinks, Chris. Still breaks my heart.
It does. It does. And that it is not entirely our fault that those expectations changed because we look so good against Wales and England. So that in itself, like, raised our expectations of like, oh, well, no, we can actually compete on this level and we can actually look good on this level. So now let's show it against a better team like Netherlands.
Yeah. And it does, and I do actually believe this even more now after having watched this tournament. I think if we have a striker or at least 2 guys on the field that are confident in their goal-scoring ability, I think we could have made the quarterfinals this year, and we could have made a run at the semifinals because at the end of the day, you cannot advance in this tournament if you don't score goals, right? And so it didn't matter.
A lot of people try to say that because of this game against the Netherlands, like, our defense was weak. That's not true. Our defense was strong throughout this tournament, and the reason they looked weak in this game is, we said, it was super clinical and disciplined about how they approached it. Had a couple of people sleep and some terrible miscommunication, and for a few mistakes.
Right.
Overall, our defense was very solid. And really the only thing we're lacking is that striker up front who's fear into the defense.
Right. Who creates that threat. Because if you think if Pulisic scores his goal and Haji Wright scores his goal, the narrative changes. Now Netherlands media is going, what a costly turnover in your defensive third. And the United States capitalizes. It goes right to him. Musa clips it over the top. Pulisic brings it down, bangs it in the net, right? And they're like, you can't give away that kind of a chance. A coach is furious and frustrated, right? Like, you guys are just falling apart. Haji Wright making that breakthrough, like, you guys lost track of your man. He's not that fast. The goalie comes out, he touches it by him, bangs it in the net. Now it's 2-2, and now it's okay that your defense gave up 2 goals because so did the Netherlands. And now you're looking for that third goal. Yep. And our third goal probably doesn't happen because we're not stretched. We're not pushing for all those things. So, like, without that player, without that goal-scoring mentality and that confidence, it puts you in weird situations like this. I am confident that if the United States had conceded a goal to England early on, it would have looked like the Senegal game, right? It would have looked like the Brazil-Korea game because we would have been forced to compete in an area that we have no business competing in. And teams that are tactically better, like we saw in this Netherlands game, would have taken advantage of that, right? And that's sort of what the Netherlands did. I could agree with that. Like, the Netherlands got that early goal. They let us press. We honestly did not create anything dangerous out of our stretch chances. And the Netherlands said, well, we're going to take the space when we get it. We know what our intentions are. We know what we want to do. And what? The only thing you could say at the end of the day is Cody Gakpo didn't score in a 4th consecutive game? Okay, right? Like, they'll take that. They'll take that all day because they have,
they're happy with that.
And and from another tactics thing, this was the first game that we played against a dual striker system, right? That's great. Thanks for pointing that fact out. Too bad, right? Like, teams don't play the same, and you have to be able to adjust to them. You can't just sit here and be like, I'm going to throw rock all day and rock, paper, scissors. I'm just going to hope nobody throws paper and everybody throws scissors. Right? That's what it feels like we were doing.
That's absolutely true. That is just exactly what it feels like.
Well, Greg's thrown rock the last 4 games. Like, you think he's going to throw rock again? And the Netherlands was like, yeah, we're pretty confident. I'm pretty sure he's going to do that.
That actually feels exactly like what happened. Den Hall said, hey, look at how they've played this entire tournament and those friendlies and qualifying. Well, I think if we play this way, can
right. And you got to give his players credit because his players Like we've all
His
been a
players
player.
did what he asked them to do.
Exactly, and we've all been a player on a team where we're like, but coach, man, if you just give me the ball, let me punish this dude. I just want it. And the coach is like, no, you're going to play the way the team plays. You're going to give the ball to the players. I want you to give the ball to. You're going to do this. And to the credit of every single player on the Netherlands, they did that. Whatever their coach had told them to do, whatever strategy it was, they all bought into it, and they made it work, and it paid off. Nobody wanted to be
They looked really good
the
doing
hero.
it.
Right. Everybody was willing to say, like, and the Netherlands has quality. They could have played a style where they tried to match us in possession. They could have played into our
Frankie
midfield.
de Jong is a very good.
He's a great
possession
player. They could have gone for it. They could have been like,
Davy
you know what?
Klaassen is good.
Let's see what happens. Let's see if we can put the United States in their place and show them they're not really a world power. Like, let's go for this. And Louis van Gaal was like, but why? Why would we even?
And I think
why
that's
would we
where
even have to take
exactly.
that shot?
Van Gaal said he looked at the England game and said, okay, that's what England tried to do, and U.S. actually showed themselves, very well in that situation. So yeah, let's not play into that. We have these strengths. They have these weaknesses.
Right.
Let's match those up.
Yeah.
We need a coach who's going to do that.
Right. And who's going to spend the time teaching our players, these various things. And to an extent, also, like, I would have liked to see one of the tactics be something that the players were already familiar with. A lot of the teams they play for overseas play really similar styles, or at least are exposed to very similar styles. And I felt like the U.S. was, this is how I've looked at our tactics. We play an amalgamation of a bunch of different tactics without really playing a defined one, right? So it's almost like Greg was like, I want a little bit of this, and I want a little bit of this, and I want a little bit of this, and I'm going to smash it together, and it kind of created this thing, and we're going to do that because it's unique and it's different. But it's like, okay, but Greg, what is it? And Greg's like, it's, you see it. It's that. It's right there. Like, but Greg, what is it? You just watch. It's there. And there were games where it looked great, and there were games like the Netherlands game and half of our qualifying games where you kind of scratched your head and you were like, did we just do nothing for 90 minutes? Now obviously the Netherlands game we didn't, but how many qualifying games did we sit there and like stare at the television and we're like, did we just play Honduras and do nothing for 90 minutes? And like Greg's thrilled. Greg's like, yeah, I thought the guys really like executed greatly. So that the plan was to roll over and die.
The plan was to play keep away and not actually score goals.
Right. Like, and that's where backing away from this game, that's the next step the United States has to have, right? You watched England come out against Iran in that first game and they went to work and they just put it to rest, right? 6-2, just absolute thrashing. You watch France come out against Australia, but Australia scored first. Nobody cares. Okay. And they put them to bed and they thrashed them. Right? Brazil thrashed through the group stages, right? They thrashed through there's that next level where you really establish yourself that, like, I understand 32 countries made this. We are going to show you why we're one of the top 4 teams, and we're going to do it early on. I think France is a top 4 team. I think Brazil's a top 4 team. I think Spain might be a top 4 team. And I can't really argue that England's going to be because they have to play France, so it's going to be one of them. But I can tell you right now that bottom other team, there's like Portugal and nobody are in there. That whoever comes out of that section doesn't matter because they're not as good as Spain, and they're definitely not as good as Brazil. So at this point, I'm guessing whoever wins the Brazil-France semi is going to win the whole thing unless there's some crazy fluke. Just because, dang. And so I have Brazil winning this whole thing, and I'm feeling really good about having Brazil winning this whole thing. Although I had us losing to them in the semis, and I don't feel very good about that. But
do you want to move on then and just like look at the tournament as a whole?
Yeah.
See where we are and where it's going to go.
Let's do that. We got a couple minutes here. So, just reflecting on my bracket briefly, I did have Belgium in the final, so that was fun.
I did too.
And you know what's crazy is I think if I had watched Belgium play like maybe a single soccer game before this and didn't just look at FIFA's world rankings and be like, I don't know, they're really high up there and they been the number one for a while, and sure, they dropped before the tournament. They're a good team. Like, they got good
I
players. Let's do
actually
it.
did actually watch them. I watched them in the Euros, and like I know they didn't finish great in the Euros, but when I watched them play, I was like, they have a good team. The reality is, Eden Hazard not playing at Real Madrid for the last 2 years. He was dead out there. He looked terrible.
Yeah, he looked
And,
real bad.
I don't know how much I blame China for this. I think him, like, he's playing week in and week out, like, serving balls into Holland. And, last year it was Sterling. And serving those balls into Foden and Bernardo Silva, like, has to be some part of his mind that when he steps on the field for Belgium and he's like, am I even trying? Like, these guys aren't going to do
Right.
I'm used to being done.
Right.
I like he is still my favorite, midfielder. I think he is the best midfielder in the world right now.
He's gross, dude. He's
When
so
you
good.
watched him play this tournament for Belgium, you could just see that, like, he did not have the belief that the passes he was making
Mm-hmm.
going to produce anything the way that he does when he plays for City. I think that's part of why they weren't as sharp throughout the tournament, is because he's like, well, I'm going to do my best, but it's not going to result in anything.
Right. Yeah, and you compare that to his comments that he said beforehand of just like, no, I don't think we're gonna win. We're just too old. Like, you just makes you wonder. Like, was he just there to be there because like he had to be, and he's trying to stay fit and in shape because it really wasn't a great performance from Belgium. And I know their team wasn't like loaded, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad team, and I
Still a lot of
thought
good players in
I
that
thought they
team.
at least should have made it out of their group. Um, the other thing that's it's just really
Really should.
discouraging for me is just Germany. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what you got to
And
do
I
now
know
for.
I do agree with that. Like, I'm a fan of Germany, and I see the quality on their team and say they should have done better. But obviously, Spain has a lot of quality. Spain played fantastic, deserved to get out of the group. And if you look at Japan, obviously, who knows what the heck happened in their Costa Rica game. Their game against Croatia today, they looked like the better team for most of that game. They should have beat Croatia. They had several chances that they missed. Want to, bring that
Well,
back to
yeah, and
us.
when
They
it
were
comes down to
similar in that they
penalties, though,
weren't.
like you gotta. I mean, those were embarrassing penalties,
Uh,
and that's it. That is the unfortunate part of this tournament is like it's eventually going to get to penalty kicks, and like you you can't. I'm not saying they got to be like just absolute class, but they can't be that. Like they just can't be
the
that poor.
first, especially, it was like early to the side of the goal.
Right. Literally, it was
Uh,
crazy. But like I'm saying this because Germany went out in the group stage last World Cup.
and
And so
there
now
needed to be something different.
right, and so this is two and you look at their roster, there's a lot of quality there. They got a lot of players that are playing, some of them are like the guys on the teams that they play for.
Oh,
I,
I mean, it's half of
I know
Bayern
you're in a group
Munich.
of Spain. Like I know you're in a group of Spain and I know that throws a wrench in everything, but like you did your job, you drew Spain. So there's your lock. You're both going to be there. All you got to do is beat Saudi Arabia. No, not Saudi Arabia. Sorry. You have to beat
Okay, yeah.
I don't know why I'm thinking Saudi. I'm like losing my mind. You have to beat Japan and I'm
Okay,
losing.
yeah.
Yeah. And you couldn't?
I don't know. I don't really know what to say about Germany. I think they were just kind of caught between caught in between something. Don't know what it was, but they were like half of one and half of the other, and it didn't work together.
No, it didn't. And I don't know. And I'm not saying it's like I don't want to take anything away from Japan. right? Like Japan is a good side. We saw that in this Croatia game. They're a very good side. I just think there's an expectation for German football that even
Be
if you had
better.
a good game against them, like they shouldn't have been a team like a draw would have been like the worst that you were expected to. You were like, whoa, we
Yes,
lost,
absolutely.
right? But like, I don't know. You mean you watch Costa Rica just get put away by Spain. So if I had to look at the groups, like, and I had to look at the result, I was the most surprised by as far as disappointment. Like Germany not getting out of the group probably was that, and it's solely because they didn't make it out last time. Belgium, I understand, the generation is coming down, the empire is ending, that season is done. They need to rebuild and figure their lives out. Germany sort of came off this really big high. They didn't make it out of the group stage. It was like, what the heck is going on? We got to get our life back together. We got to get things in order. And then you're knocked out of the group stage again. And like that was rough for me.
I can agree with that.
I had 12 of the 16 correct though. So
I think I'm pretty close to that.
it fell off very hard after that. So the most I can have is 4 of the final 8. And if Spain wins, I think it's Spain. If Spain wins tomorrow, that will be it. I will have 4 of the 8. And then all I can have is 2 of the semifinalists, but it's because I have England beating France. So unless I'm really just banking on Brazil here to get me all the way through, because that's about all I have left. Were there any other like big shocks for you, Chris? When you look back through like all the group stage games or even some of these knockout ones, like was there any team that you were like, man, I was really expecting you to be better? We mentioned Germany and Belgium. Like, was there anybody else?
Denmark, I think I was very surprised by. I definitely had expected Denmark to do better.
Yeah, especially the way that they
They
performed in
finished
the
last in
Euros.
their group below Tunisia. Like, as far as shockers going the other way, Morocco is my big shock as far as a positive.
Yeah, agreed. I think Morocco winning that group was not on a whole lot of people's radars at all.
On anybody's radar. That group was my big fail. I had Belgium and Canada coming out of Group F, and both home.
Yeah. So, like, when I looked at all the groups, right? So I did individual games as well. And for the first 4 groups, I predicted 4 of the 6 match results exactly the way they went. And then I went 3 of 6, 2 of 6, 1 of 6, and 1 of 6. Right? And obviously, like, the last group was, I thought it was the group of death. I thought those last couple were harder groups. But then also you look at Germany, just
They were.
being Germany. But like I'm kind of disappointed that Portugal is still there. I didn't think they played well enough to really get anywhere. I thought they should have lost to Ghana. I thought they struggled in games they didn't need to struggle in, and so I'm not really too excited to watch them play this next game.
For me, Portugal never looked like a great team to me. Their path so easy.
Right.
Nobody in their group, like South Korea and Uruguay, are pretty good teams, but they're not great. Wasn't expecting great things from them. Then they're going up against Switzerland tomorrow, and kind of the same thing. Like, Switzerland is good. Yeah, they were good enough to get out of their group, and I think they are that good. They really on a level to challenge something like Portugal?
Right.
No, I don't think so.
Right.
So, like, Portugal's probably going to win tomorrow, but then they're going to go up against Spain. Let's be real, Spain is beating Morocco.
Right, which
but
leaves you
Portugal's
with
gonna go up
Spain
against
playing Spain probably playing France in a
Spain's going to
semifinal.
destroy them.
Right. And when I look at the 16 teams, right, and I try to figure out like where would they all have kind of fallen, right? Australia's one that's probably down towards that bottom of the 16th, right? Like Senegal's got to be close. I mean, I know we are probably down there somewhere, right? Japan's probably down there. But, like, there were just some of these teams that, really got handed something. I didn't think any of the African teams really looked stellar by any means. Even my friend who's from Ghana, he was like, dude, if we even get out of the group, it'll be a miracle. Like, we're just not a great side this time. And so, like, England really getting a freebie going against Senegal.
Especially without Mane.
Portugal and Switzerland they're both kind of like meh, right? They're both good sides. They both have good teams. I don't think either one of them really favored to go a whole lot further, right? I mean,
I wouldn't think so.
Morocco, maybe it's just chemistry. Maybe they make a run at Spain and they try to do something. I don't think so. I think we're going to see a Spain side that like switches gears, just like we saw a France side switch gears, just like we saw a Brazil switch gears. Like I don't think the
reality is a lot of these high-powered teams play a little bit differently through the group stage than they do, because like you said, you see them, England, Brazil, France, Spain, you all saw them go out in their first game of the group stage and smash it. And the second two games of the group stage, they just kind of played to get through it.
Yep, they did what they had to do. And they understood, they had the experience to understand goal differential was going to be a thing. And so Spain was like, oh, we're playing Costa Rica first. Let's bury them. Let's never take your foot off the gas. Let's score as many goals as we can so that we're only looking at points from here on out. We're just looking at, like, we could draw both of the games. We could lose one of these games, and we're probably still going to get through because we scored so many goals. And you didn't see that from a lot of the other sides.
So, yes, now they get into the knockout round, and like you said, they crank it back up again because they got to win each game. And so they do.
Yep, and I mean, you look at the teams, France winning 3-1 over Poland, they were a squad that got to rest 9 starters in the last group stage game. Brazil, 4-1 over South Korea. Honestly, the last goal was probably a gift because Brazil had already made so many subs. They subbed out 9 guys in their last game, right? We're going to see what Spain really has in it because Spain, honestly, like, granted, their group was a little harder. They kind of had to play the whole time.
They did, Well, and because, like we said, because they played Costa Rica first, they had to go hard against their easy team, and they still had to play well against the other two teams.
Right. And so, like, I think it, Argentina and the Netherlands, I really don't think it's going to matter. I don't think either side has a chance against Brazil. Granted, Argentina knows them from Common Bowl and qualifying, so
Argentina has a better chance than the Netherlands for 2 reasons. Because, like you said, they have a familiarity. They probably some strategies already in place to kind of deal with Brazil. And Argentina does have Messi. And if it's a tight game, sometimes he will just win you the game.
Right. The downside is Brazil has 8 of those guys on their starting lineup. Richarlison looks so good.
But none of them are, I mean, they're all like here though.
I'm watching Richarlison play and I watch Perisic's header and I'm like, as a Tottenham fan, I'm like, what are we doing?
You're absolutely right.
Where has this been? Richarlison's just a monster in this World Cup, and like he's been good for Tottenham. So like, don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing him, but like he hasn't done this stuff for Tottenham.
The big problem, I get
he's playing behind Kane, and
Well, and that's the problem is Harry Kane is that guy for Tottenham. Richarlison playing in the same spot.
Yeah, he's playing as a winger, and Richarlison just wants to be your big, burly number 9 standing up front and just smashing balls in the back of the net.
This is what he's been doing, and he's been doing it really well in this World Cup.
Yeah, he's been doing it really, really well. So I think the way that you and I are having it line up, we're looking at Netherlands, Argentina, Croatia, Brazil, England, France, and then we're guessing Spain, and then it could be Portugal or Switzerland. I'm not really sure. But, you look at Spain's road, Spain's probably beating Morocco, and then you just have to beat Portugal or Switzerland. Neither side has looked that strong, so Spain's got one of the easier roads to get there. I would almost argue the same for Brazil. Granted, I think their teams as a power ranking are a little bit better, but like I think Brazil's going to handle Croatia. Then they just got to handle.
I don't see a problem there.
Right, the Netherlands or Argentina, which I think that they'll be able to handle that, and then
I mean, the game of the tournament, honestly, is going to be. I know English people are so excited about this team. Reality is France is better. And so
And they
if
don't have
somehow
Benzema. Like,
if somehow England wins, I won't be terribly shocked. It definitely won't be the thing I'm expecting. Like I'm expecting France to handle England.
yes.
So like
You know what makes me? You
game
know what irritates me about
game of
England?
the
Harry Maguire has looked so good this tournament. Like, he's looked
yeah,
so good.
but I am a Man United fan and I watch them as often as I possibly can. He's so bad.
That's what I'm saying.
The thing is he's really not so bad. He makes so many boneheaded mistakes.
I mean, he's
You're
made
just
a
like
couple in this event, but right, I get what you're
what are you
saying.
doing? I mean, we've seen almost none of those mistakes in this tournament, and all of his good qualities are suddenly up
Yeah,
here again.
he's just suddenly going for it. Well, the good news is it looks like Brazil's not going to have to play France until the final. So we're probably going to get a pretty gnarly final. Um,
Yeah, we definitely will be. The
if
final's going to
Brazil,
be
if all right,
amazing.
so if Brazil doesn't make it out of the top four teams, what's the next team that you want to see make the final?
I want to see Argentina make them.
Okay, and
I
then
would love to see Messi a World Cup. Oh, with the
how
other
badly
teams
do you
that
want
are
to see
in it right
Cristiano
now,
Ronaldo in the final?
uh, the opposite
The
way,
opposite, right?
negative
Not at
10,
all. Not
maybe
at all. That
negative
man
10.
he's really burned some bridges over the last you know month of his life. Yeah, it's gonna be rough. If not France, then England. I'll take either one of those teams. I really don't want to see Spain in there again.
I don't know. I
I'm pulling
mean,
for the Lions. I like Spain as a team, but I'm pulling for the
would
Lions.
I would love to see England get through there. I don't think they can, but I would love to see England get through. But I would be okay with Spain. I really like the young guys on Spain. Xavi and
Their young guys
Pedri.
are real good.
They're great to watch. They're
Yeah,
fun to watch.
yeah. Ferran Torres, they're so good. I think if England's strategy is to possess the ball in the attacking half and let their strikers in midfield do the work, I think they'll be successful. If they get caught being the team that has to sit back and play defense and try to transition, I'm not saying they can't do it. That's a
One
lot of
thing,
guys on England can. I think they're going to be in trouble.
the one that I will give England, you don't line up Mbappe against John Stones and Harry Maguire and say, that you're like, that doesn't look amazing. But if Walker can be fully fit for the game against France, Walker can run with Mbappe. Has plenty of experience chasing down that type of dangerous forward and shutting them down. So that's the one thing that England has. That if Walker can be healthy enough, really run with Mbappe, like you said, if they can keep the ball down in their attacking half of the field and let Bellingham and Foden and Grealish and let all those guys go to work, not be quite as worried about that, breakout transition long ball that Mbappe just lives on.
Mm-hmm.
They hopefully have a counter to it.
You got to hope so because, man, you get caught in transition. I mean, whatever. What's his name? What is it? It's Didier something is the coach. I can't remember France's. Didier Deschamps. Man, he was hollering at Mbappe to come back and play defense, and Mbappe wasn't doing it. And what's the first thing that happens after that is they just send him on a break, and he's gone. He bangs the ball in the net. So, England is definitely going to have to be wary of that because France has that ability. Like, Mbappe's just he's on a whole nother level. And he's somebody where if you just hit him the ball through, like, if you can't have your hands on him when you're running with him to try to slow him down, he's gone. I mean, he showed that against Poland. Like, he's so fast, and he's willing
And
to do it. He's willing to run. He's willing to take chances. He's willing to hit the ball in front of him and just out sprint you. Like,
France's front four is very strong. Mbappe, Dembele, Griezmann, and Giroud. Like that's a really strong front four.
mm-hmm.
Despite Griezmann's whatever has been going on at his club level, he's still a very good player, and he plays really well for France. So
Yeah.
they get the ball moving and they get going, are very dangerous. And England's defense is just not up to that quality.
Right.
I really see them stopping them.
What I do like about looking at all of these squads of all the teams that are left, the Netherlands is young. I think they'll get better. Argentina's pretty young. I think they'll get better. Croatia, not so much. Croatia's like probably not going to be a whole lot any better.
Next World Cup, they're going back down a little bit.
Right. Brazil's hit or miss. They're going to have a lot of young talent come up. They're going to lose some of their older guys. England, this might be it. I know they have a lot of young talent, and they're going to have a lot of guys that are around for the next cycle. Who knows what they're going to look like? I think this is it again for France.
I think England will be around for
I think England will. I think they will be, but I'm just saying it's going to be close. The guys that they have in the next cycle are going to be hanging on. Same with France. France is going to lose a lot of guys going into the next cycle. Spain will look dangerous in the next cycle, but like Portugal will kind of be out. Switzerland will be hit or miss.
Portugal's going to.
That's where I like us. I really like the fact that when you looked at our squad, there is a benefit to being the youngest squad on the field. You're right. The average age is 25 years. That means in 4 years, the average age is 29.
The only reason.
And the only reason it's 25 is because Tim Ream was like
Tim
40.
Ream. It would have been an average age of like 23 without Ream on the field.
Right, which gives you the average age of like 26, 27 the next time around. And that's normal.
We're looking real good for 26.
That's normal,
absolutely.
Right? So those are all positives, but I don't know. Going forward, just be a little bit of World Cup coverage. And then one of the things I'm going to start to do for everybody is I'm really going to dive into our U20 team and talk about guys like Paxton Aronson who are going to be coming up, and just keep you guys posted on sort of like the long-term research that you might not have time to do of what does U.S. soccer look like. If there's coaching changes, we'll cover it. We'll talk about it. If there's tournaments coming up, as we find out more about the qualifying for the next time, what it's going to look like, teams, and all that good stuff. I know FIFA had been saying they were just going to have 3 teams in a group. It sounds like they're going to do away with that and look at more of the way like the European qualifiers had happened. But when we get there, we'll get there. This was a longer episode, but it was worth it. The end of the dream has ended for us. I know the dream is alive for a lot of other countries out here for this year, but 2026, we'll be back. We'll be ready. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. Leave a comment. Tell us what you're most excited for in the next 4 years. Tell us if your tournament favorite or the person you predicted is still in. How's your brackets doing? All that good stuff. We appreciate you guys tuning in on Extra Time, and we will catch you next time.